Hello and welcome to another video from Fantasy Football Scout. Today we're talking about something a little bit different. It's not FPL, it's not Sky, it's FanTeam, which I'm sure you've all heard about. But if you haven't, myself and Neil are going to run through what it is, what the differences with FPL are, and also what the similarities are, which there are a lot. So for any veteran FPL managers, this is probably going to be a game for you. But before we get into that, Neil, how you doing?
Very good, thank you, Andy. Yeah, ramping up, prep for the new season. I think we're closer to next season than we are last now. So yeah, articles are really stepping up on the site, and video content as well from your good self. So yeah, I think this is our first FanTeam video of the season, and we'll be talking you through the sort of the basics and the how-to today, because I'm looking forward to playing this next season. I think especially as FPL are clamping down on paid for cash leagues. This is kind of like a legitimate way to make money from your FPL know-how, really. So yeah, I'm looking forward to playing it.
Yeah, it was FanTeam was obviously a thing last year. I don't think it necessarily had as many players that are going to sign up this year for one reason, and that's what's on the screen right now. There's a €1 million prize pool. Now, don't get me wrong, there was a big prize pool last year. The winner got 50,000, which I don't think anyone would turn their noses up to. But when there's €1 million at stake, then it's a bit different. So before we get into the kind of different scoring and stuff like that, I'm just going to go quickly through the prize pool. So it's a 1 million total. The winner, so the person who is number one at the end of the season, will get €200,000, and then you can see the different payouts on the screen. So second place is 100,000, which isn't bad at all. You know, I would take that right now if you offered it to me. Third place is 60,000. Fourth is 40,000. Without going through all of them, you can see the places are paid right down to 5,659th as well. So even if you finish in the top 5,659, you would still get your stake back. So it's €25 to enter. And obviously then you can see the prize pools on there if you want to test your FPL skills. And not only are there season-long prize pools, but there's also weekly and monthly prize pools, so you can see them on screen again. So there's weekly prizes, €200 for first, 100 for second, and 50 for third. And then monthly prizes start from 1,000 going all the way down to 50 for fifth. So a few different ways that you can make your money back. Obviously, it is gambling. You should be aware of that. There's links in the description below, which you can check out as well. And there's also a link in the description below if you want to sign up and test your FPL skills for some real decent money. So with all the prize pools and stuff out of the way, we'll quickly talk about the game rules and the scoring system, because it is very, very similar to FPL. And I think this is probably one of the easiest games to pick up as an FPL manager, but there are some differences. So I'll quickly go through the different game rules, and then Neil's going to talk you through the different scoring rules. So in terms of games, it's very similar. You pick 15 players, two goalkeepers, I should say, 5 defenders, 5 midfielders, 3 forwards, and only a maximum of 3 players from each team. So that's quite a common thing. 100 million to spend. You'll see that the price points are slightly different for some players, which we're going to talk about at the end. And then prices can rise and fall based on form. And I think you get, am I right in saying if it goes up 0.1 million, you get that 0.1 million? That's
yeah,
right?
A player's sell price is their buy price. So yeah, there's none of this, half measures, Mark. So yeah, you can, with that in mind, you can probably switch in big hitters a lot more easily without the fear of losing sell value.
Yeah, that's definitely a kind of big conversation around FPL. And it does say that on the next bit, which I forgot to read. It does say there, same as their buy price. So there you go. Unlimited changes until game week 1, of course. 1 hour before kickoff is the deadline. So they haven't moved the deadline like FPL, which is 90 minutes. So potentially there's still some early in the know news you could potentially get for this. That's right. I don't think they've changed that, have they? It's definitely an hour before at the time of recording, at least.
That's right. Yeah, I think it was just before kickoff last season, so they have shifted it back. But it's still a later deadline than FPL. So you get your FPL team sorted 90 minutes before kickoff on the first match of a game week, and you've got an extra half an hour to sort your fan team out as well. So that's good. It gives you something to do while FPL is reloading and down for a couple of minutes. So yeah, and as you see there, the potential for early leaks, which of course are frowned upon in FPL circles, but any bit of helps is welcome really in FanTeam. So yeah, that's something to keep an eye on Twitter, I think, if you're playing this game this season.
Absolutely. And then obviously just to finish off, captain and vice captain works exactly the same. So double points for your captain, 1 transfer each game week, and then each additional one is 4 points. So exactly the same. And you can save your transfer but not have more than 2. So that's exactly the same as FPL. The only slight difference is There's no chips, there's no triple captaincy, there's no bench boost or free hit, which a lot of people will like, because I've lost count of the amount of people that tell me they wish chips weren't a thing. Well, here you go, there's no chips in this. But there are still wildcards, which I think is fair, because a lot of people, I don't think would want to lose that from FPL. So you've got 2 wildcards, 1 for each half of the season. And again, slight difference here. FPL have done it so the first wildcard has to be used by game week 16 this year. In FanTeam, you got up until game week 18 for the first one, and then 19 to 38 for the second wildcard, basically. So it's not too much difference. And again, I think that's one of the reasons people are enjoying this, is because it is very easy to pick up if you're a kind of long-term or even a new FPL player, to be fair. So the only other thing we want to kind of talk about before we talk about the player prices and maybe some bargains and what the big hitters are priced at, and obviously there are some position change differences as well, is a scoring system. So do you want to take us through that? Because it is a little bit different in some places, isn't it?
I will do, yeah. Great thing about it is, much like the rules which you've just outlined there, it's very, very similar. So I know this at the Sky game, for example, can be quite hard to pick up if you're exclusively an FPL player, because of things like passing bonus and tackle bonus, shots on target, all that. With the FanTeam scoring system, it's very, very similar. So, for example, defender scores a goal, 6 points, midfielder 5, striker 4. So that's exactly the same as FPL. Goalkeepers and defenders get 4 points for clean sheets. Again, the same. They get deducted -1 if they concede a goal. 2 goals, which is the same. Assists 3 points. Again, the same. So all of that, all the basics are very, very similar. There are, I would say, 4 key differences which I've picked out. Firstly, there's no bonus point system, which is, I think, a bit of a Marmite thing in FPL. I think it's a scourge of some managers, and it's to the delight of others. But so instead of that, which is based on underlying Opta stats, there is a simple plus minus points thing, which is just if a team is winning or losing when the player's on the pitch. So you'll see later on that really benefits the likes of Liverpool, Man City, United assets, the teams who are obviously doing better in the league or winning more matches. Well, their players are going to get an extra point over, say, mid-table fodder relegation strugglers, regardless of what they do, because they're going to win more games than not. Also, on the flip side of that, if there's no bonus point system, that damages players like, for example, Danny Ings, who got 40 bonus points last season. Forwards are generally benefited the most from the FPL bonus point system. So a lot of them are worse off in this game, but it does mean that defenders from like the big hitting teams, goalkeepers as well, are more positively reflected by their team's performances, so they get an extra point for winning. So that's the first difference. Another thing which benefits goalkeepers, and I think goalkeepers are really something you need to pay attention to in FanTeam, because in FPL, I wouldn't say they're an afterthought, but often they're set and forget. Often you pick like a 4.5 goalkeeper. I know I do. I tend to pick the cheapest one out there who's playing. For FanTeam, the scoring differences are quite marked. So I think Edison last season, I think he was about 40 odd points better off in FanTeam. And part of the reason for that is not just the winning bonus, which he's going to benefit from a lot. It's the fact that goalkeepers get rewarded for every save they make. So it's not just every 3 saves in FPL, it's every save. So goalkeepers in FanTeam get half a point for every stop they make. So, for example, if you make 5 saves in a game, in FPL, that will be 1 point. In FanTeam, that's 2.5. So that's a big difference straight away. Yes, it still rewards the likes of shot-stopping goalkeepers from mid-table teams or relegation strugglers. So Pope was still better off in this game, despite the fact that he's not going to get as many winning points as the likes of Edison, Alisson. The fact that he's still making a lot of saves, and he gets rewarded for those incremental saves as well, rather than just every 3, means he's still better off in this game. So goalkeepers are very well done by, I think, in FanTeam, based on the 2 differences above. There's a few minor ones as well. I think committing a foul that leads to a free kick goal, or a converted penalty, they're penalised by -2 points. Now, it's a hard one to research that, because you never truly know who's going to give away a penalty. I guess you can look towards teams that are more obliging in that sense, like who, on the members area, for example, you can search by teams who give away the most penalties. So that's something to bear in mind. Although I wouldn't let that probably sway my personnel decisions, because it's not something you can pick out a pattern in. There aren't really many players who consistently give away penalties.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those unlucky things, isn't it? If it
Yeah,
happens,
exactly.
it's really frustrating, but
Yeah.
there's not much you can do. I quite like it, though. I quite like it as a thing. Like, if a player gives away a penalty and it gets scored, that's a pretty big deal. It's a bad place to be fouling, so I can see why they've done it. But yeah, I think I agree. I don't think there's much you can kind of do about that, basically.
There's one other one as well, which is a midfielder or attacker. If they play the full match, they get an extra point. So this is where perhaps the likes of Aubameyang come in, and Grealish maybe as well. So they tend to play their talisman of their team. They tend to play and start every match. They tend to last the duration as well. I think Grealish was only subbed off once last season. That was because of injury. So even though he plays for a team that doesn't get a lot of winning bonus, even though he plays for a team that doesn't score a lot, he's not going to get a bonus points per se on the BPS system. The fact that he lasts the full match, he was still better off in FanTeam last season than he was in FPL, and he's actually cheaper in FanTeam this year as well. So that's another little quirk of the FanTeam scoring system, in that your attacking players, be it midfielders or forwards, they're going to get an extra point if they complete the game. So again, that is research you can do. You can go into our members area and you can have a look by minutes played. You can filter by substituted off appearances, so you can see how many times players have been hauled off. So that again, if you're umming and ahhing between two players who are at the same price point, who are fairly evenly matched, then that is a factor to consider, because they all add up at the end of the day. If you're playing 38 games a season and you're lasting the course in all of them, that's an extra 38 points a year. So those are the four major sort of differences that I could spot. There might be others, but I think that's basically the bulk of them covered there. But mostly it's exactly the same as FPL, and it's very easy to pick up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think straight away when you were saying you play the full match, and obviously when you win it, straight away I was thinking, I wonder how much Harry Kane is, someone like that is going to play every single game. And mostly get to 90 minutes, not always, but a lot more than like a Man City player. But of course, you've got to counteract that with the fact that Man City score a lot of goals. So even though they might not get the 1 point for playing the full match, they've probably got a lot of other points for attacking returns. So yeah, it's something to kind of weigh up, I guess, between players. We can actually take a quick look at the prices. So I've got this is actually the screen that you'll see. So I've got it actually live. I can play around with it as we're recording. So we're not going to build a team today. We might do another video where we start looking at maybe building a full draft.
Yep.
But just to take a quick look at we'll talk about the bargain players potentially in a second. Just take a quick look at the kind of heavy hitters, the one that usually we're drawn to first. So there are some differences. Prices came out before FPL launched. So like the likes of De Bruyne, 12.5 million. So Mo Salah was 12.5 in FPL last year. He's still 12.5 in FanTeam, and Kevin De Bruyne is also 12.5. So you've got to pay quite a bit more for him, another million. But that means the likes of Raheem Sterling, who in FPL terms, I'm even weighing up at the same price as De Bruyne. In this, you can get him for a full 1.5 million less. So straight away, without thinking, I'd have to go and do some research about the minutes and all that kind of thing. Straight away, I'm thinking 1.5 million saving. Raheem Sterling over Kevin De Bruyne all the way. And Harry Kane, who I just mentioned as well, is 11 million. Same as Aubameyang, who's still as a forward in this. I know some people weren't happy that he changed to midfielder in FPL, but he's still a forward in FanTeam. And then some other players that you're going to have to pay more for. Jamie Vardy's 10.5, Bruno Fernandes is 11. But I think it's probably worth, before looking at that and thinking you can't make a team or they're too expensive compared to FPL, it is worth remembering what we just talked about, where the big teams are going to win more matches, and especially if they play 90 minutes, you're going to get extra points as well. So in some cases, they're probably worth paying a little bit more for. Did you say that you'd seen some bargain players that you think might stand out?
Yeah, Sterling was one of them. Funnily that you mentioned it, I think straight away. I know they're blanking in game week 1, but from game week sort of 2 onwards, maybe 3, because I know they've got a tricky test up first. Sterling would be someone I'm thinking about straight away. It's a bit of a no-brainer, I think, for me, compared to De Bruyne, 1.5 million saving. Again, in FPL, that's a decision that's going to be a lot closer to call, but immediately I'm thinking that makes my decision a lot easier. I think that's a great price for him. Given the fact that we think he had quite a poor season last season, and for a large chunk of it, I know he finished really well, but for a large period, he wasn't really considered by anybody in FPL, and he still scored 20 goals, which is more than I think any midfielder managed. So it was his assist count. I think that let him down majorly, and that was arguably because of poor finishing from teammates. If you look at his expected assists, I don't think anyone underachieved more than he did. So you'd expect him, based on his previous history, to better his returns last year, and being at that price, then I think I'll be all over that. Yeah, so I think yes, you've highlighted the fact that the premium options are more expensive, but the good thing is with FanTeam, they have a lot of cheap options. I mean, loads. I think in their 4 million defender pool, there's over twice as many as there is in FPL. There's 4 million midfielders and forwards as well. So I know in FPL, the sort of lowest limit at the start is 4.5 million. In FanTeam, that drops to 4. So you can fill your bench with cheaper options, playing options as well, as we'll discuss in a second, and still afford that bit of extra cost for the premium assets who are going to set you back a little bit more in most cases than they are in FPL. So it kind of offsets each other. There's not going to be you're not going to be able to struggle to put together a squad.
I'll just
really
quickly before you do that, because you've just mentioned the 4 millions. I've literally just brought them up on screen there. So a few players stand out to me here. Vinagre is 4 million. So I mean, he's obviously, it's all going to depend on Wolves signing a new left back, but he is like a lock in so many people's FPL teams. So for 4 million, that's an absolutely crazy price. And I just saw Vestergaard as well. For Southampton, potentially there could be a good option.
I don't think he'll start. I think because they've signed another centre back. But I get your point. Yeah, I mean, Vinagre. If Wolves don't sign a wing back, then again, no brainer, straight in the team.
Yeah, there's definitely some options there. Obviously Ferguson as well, which a lot of people are hoping will play right back for Crystal Palace. So yeah, potential options. Obviously Vestergaard, maybe not them, but if they get any injuries, could be absolutely ridiculous having a 4 million playing defender. But yeah, that's some crazy prices to have midfielders at that price as well. Maybe it doesn't. You're right. It doesn't then seem so hard necessarily to fit in all those big hitters. So yeah, what other players were you going to say there?
Well, I've got kind of a position by position rundown. Just sort of a few names per category, really. Goalkeepers, I noticed that there's only 2 at 5.5. So the likes of Schmeichel, Lloris, Patrizio are all cheaper, 5 million. Guaita is 4.5, which really stood out to me. I mean, I know Palace are kind of a mixed bag. Basically, the good thing about him is you can pinpoint when Palace are playing the sort of also-rans of the division, because all of their clean sheets last season, all 10 of them, were against teams ranked 10th or below. So if they've got a good run of fixtures coming up, and he's 4.5 million, and he does get a lot of saves, then again, that's something that really leaps out to me. Pickford's 4.5 as well. I know he's maligned in some quarters, but Everton can keep clean sheets. I know they weren't watertight under Ancelotti, but I still think that's a good price for Pickford. Defenders, as you said there, Vinagre, it's 4. I think it's 38 of them. It's 4 million, which is a huge pool. A lot of Villa defenders in there as well. They had a bit of improvement towards the end of the season. Going up a slightly bit more, I think there's a lot of value in the 4.5 category. Basham and O'Connell, both 4.5 million. So Sheffield United's defence was one of the best in the division last season. So on top of the Burnley defenders that you can get for 4.5, as you can in FPL, you've got 2 routes there into the Sheffield United defence who are nailed. They're going to start every week. In O'Connell's case, I know he didn't really deliver on attacking returns last season, but he is an occasional threat in the air. I noticed David Louise at 4.5 million as well.
I just spotted that. That's crazy, isn't it? Like, I mean, I know they've got a lot of centre backs, so there is potential. I suppose he does get benched at times, because I think they've got like 6-7 centre backs, and maybe even more. But surely you'd imagine he's gonna be the start. Going to start the season at least. So that's crazy price. They've got good opening fixtures as well.
For all he's lampooned by the wider public, Arteta does seem to like him, and he is capable of some really good performances. And if like you're saying, if you start the season with those 2 good fixtures, then 4.5 million for someone who's capable of chipping in with an attack return as well from a corner or a direct free kick. Yeah, that, again, a standout name there. Bolly at 5, Ake is at 5 as well. One to watch. I know he's probably not going to be starting every week, but interview to Laporte, he's a left-sided centre back. That's a 5 million route into the City defence potentially if things work out. And Van Dijk a little bit cheaper at 6 as well, which is interesting given that he fared a lot better than he did in FPL because of that winning bonus. So yeah, some bargains in defence and between the sticks. Probably less so in midfield because of what we said earlier. Like the premium options are offset by the cheaper assets elsewhere. But still, I mean, in the budget bargain end of the market, Suchek at 4.5. That's even cheaper than he is in FPL. I think is he 5? I think in FPL. He's in a
Yeah,
lot of
5.
people's
Yeah.
drafts. Capable of getting the odd goal. I think he scored 3 in the post restart era. Very good in the air, set plays, bit box to box, gets forward. So he's someone that caught my eye. I know they've got some iffy fixtures, but just as a bench option, a fifth midfielder. There are some 4 million midfielders as well, as we discussed earlier. So not like names that immediately leap out, but if you want someone who's just purely bench fodder, who's capable of coming on for an emergency couple of points at least, Basuma at 4, I think's one of the standout options. He was latterly preferred in midfield. I know Potter's prone to some rotation, but he was starting a lot more than he wasn't towards the end of the season. He likes a shot as well. I can't pronounce this guy. Grzycki, is he from West Brom, formerly of Hull? Now, not someone who's going to start every week if they bring in reinforcements, but at the moment, because they had a lot of loanees last season, likes to Robinson, Dane Garner as well from West Ham. If they don't reinforce, then all of a sudden he's closer to a first team spot. He started a few games towards the end of the season. I don't think you're going to be someone to count on every week, but just as an example of a name to keep an eye on in pre-season, in case he is getting a lot of game time. I suspect you might not, but those are the types of players who you should watch for minutes in pre-season friendlies, because they're often a good gauge of who's going to start in the season proper. In the forward pool, as you said, it's a bit swollen because Aubameyang and Rashford are still forwards, but they've also been joined by the likes of Martial and Antonio, who've been reclassified. So Antonio, again, West Ham fixtures aren't great, but from when their games improve, I think, which is game week 9 onwards, Antonio at 6.5, which is what he is in FPL. I think that's a really good price.
Yeah, I really like him.
Yeah, his underlying stats are brilliant, and he was on fire at the end of the season. Even if Allaire plays, Moyes are quite keen on pairing him in the front two towards just before lockdown started. So he paired the two of them up top. So I don't think that's necessarily a downside. Che Adams I saw at 5.5. I'm personally not yet convinced of him, but there's been a lot of talk about him in the FPL world.
Yeah,
about being a decent budget alternative to Ings. I think 2.5 saving.
Yeah, sorry, no, So I looked at him. I've looked at this kind of closely. I think that the big issue with him is whether he's going to start. That is the big issue. If he's going to start, I think there's genuine consideration that he's not a better option than Danny Ings, but he's a lot cheaper, and you have to take that into account. Like I was looking post lockdown, Ings played double the amount of minutes, but had 22 shots in the box, whereas Che Adams had 17, and his expected goal involvement was like 3.01 or something like that for Che Adams, and it was less than 6, just under 6 for Ings. So again, played double the minutes, but wasn't quite the double the expected goal involvement. So there's potential there, especially at 5.5. But the problem is they have Shane Long as well. So there's no guarantee that Che Adams is going to play week in, week out, which I think is the worry. But if he does, like if we see any inclination that it's him and Ings, yeah, definitely 5.5. I think it could be a good option. But maybe, not as good as Ings. But then that's why you pay 3 million more for him in this.
Yeah. There's not as many. There's not as many 4 million options. I think there's only 3 in FanTeam in the forward pool. But there's still plenty. There's still plenty going on in the sort of lower reaches of the market. Long, as you mentioned, there's 5. So whoever gets the nod, and Hasenhüttl did stick with the Long Ings partnership for quite a while, when their form took a turn in the right direction. And obviously he was rotating a lot towards the end of the season because their fixtures were stacking up a lot. They were playing twice a week, and they weren't playing for much at the end of the season. So he was given game time to various folk. So Adams would be in Long 5.5 and 5 respectively. He's saving a lot on Ings. Obviously they're not going to match his goal count, but offset that by the price and decent value. I think whoever gets the nod to start again, stress the importance of pre-season friendlies, because it often does give you an indication of who's going to start, at least in game week 1, and then you can take it from there. But there are bargains to be had. I know there's certain players who are more expensive, but there's reasons for that. As you said, the winning bonus being one of them. I think nearly all the Man City, Liverpool, United assets were better off last season in FanTeam in terms of overall points because of that. So yeah, there's reasons why they're like 0.5 million more expensive, but there's definitely bargains to be had lower down the chain. And even as we said, even with Sterling, there's still some decent cut price alternatives in the premium bracket as well.
Yeah, I think the thing, I've not looked through every single price, but as you've been talking, I've been looking as well. Obviously taking in what you're saying as well. I think the cool thing is, like, it is very similar to FPL, but it might give you a chance to do something a little bit different. So, like in FPL, if all Chelsea players were fit, I think at the start I would probably just go Pulisic for 0.5 more than Ziyech. But in FanTeam, he's 1 million more. And then suddenly I'm thinking, would it be worth a punt for Ziyech instead then, just to see how he goes? And maybe even just kind of, I know a lot of managers that play multiple games, they say you shouldn't hedge your bets too much. But for some people, that might be something they want to do. Because there's always those, especially if you're trying to play for a mini league or whatever in FPL, you might want to play a bit safer. But this is when you're going for big money. Perhaps you want to go a little bit different at times. So it's definitely worth having a look at all the prices. Like you said, there's plenty of bargains in there. And if you do want to sign up, like I said earlier, there is a link in the description below. This is just like an introduction video to kind of tell you what it's all about, what to look out for, different scoring and stuff like that. But we will likely, I'd say, do another video before the start of the season. And maybe when we've had a bit of a better chance to kind of look at all the player prices and maybe put an initial squad together. Not necessarily the one we're going to go in with on game week 1, because I think we both want to try and win that 200 grand. But we can talk about where our thinking is. I'm sure we'll share some of our thoughts. We don't want to keep it all to ourselves. So yeah, thanks very much for joining me, Neil. That was really helpful for everyone that wants to sign up.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Thanks for having me on.
And yeah, like I said, link in the description below if you want to sign up. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new around here. There's plenty more FanTeam, FPL content and Sky to come before the season starts. Otherwise, we'll catch you again soon. Cheers all.